Welcome to the with Divorce podcast, where we bring together family law professionals to share wisdom and teach you how to deal with divorce before, during, and after. Today, our first guest is Tony Taylor. Tony, what qualifies you to talk about divorce?
Well, I've been a divorce attorney for almost 38 years. I think I've seen it all.
What made you decide to become a divorce attorney?
I went through divorce myself. I went through a custody battle myself before I was an attorney. And it sparked an interest. And then when I began practicing law, I had some talent in that area, and the divorce cases came my way, and it just kind of happened.
When did you first get married?
Oh, I got married in 1969.
How old were you then?
18.
18. And so what do you know now that you wish you would have known then?
We don't have that much time. Just don't have that much time.
What about in finding a partner? What do you wish you would have known then that you know now?
Well, you need to take time. You need to not only look for a mate, but a best friend, someone you can share your life with. You need to think about the choice you're making and what kind of parent that person will be. What are your likes and dislikes, and what are your spouse's likes and dislikes? What do you have in common? And you need to have some maturity. I was far too young to get married.
And I ask because I figure one of the best ways to deal with divorce is to avoid it.
Absolutely.
So what are some keys to being a good partner?
For a man listening, learning how to say yes, dear, to pick your battles. Don't fight over minor stuff that really doesn't matter. Be understanding and kind to your spouse. But listen, women and men are very different. Women want to be heard. Men want to fix all the problems. Women aren't necessarily looking for someone to fix the problem, just to listen. And so you have to realize that as a man. And from that perspective, keep your marriage healthy. Be honest. Be straightforward. And just have patience and forgiveness.
So what kind of activities do you enjoy when you're not practicing law?
Well, I live on Lake Oconee now, so the lake's a big part of my life. I like to boat and fish. I have lots of friends that we spend time with. I truly enjoy spending time with my children and my grandchildren and my great-grandchildren. But that doesn't happen as much as you'd like for it to, because your children and your grandchildren, they all have their own lives that they're developing. They've met the love of their life. They've got things going on. They're trying to develop their careers, their homes, their interest. And so as a senior citizen, you have to be more patient and understand that when your family doesn't visit as often as you'd like, and it's never going to be enough, that it's not because they don't want to visit, it's because they have busy lives. Mm-hmm. But, I stay very busy. And I stay active with Daniels and Taylor, communicate regularly with the office and monitor and mentor the attorneys here in the office. And it makes for a full life.
So, I'm a big proponent in investing in yourself. What are some books that you've read that had an impact on your worldview?
Oh, my goodness. I've always liked to read history and historical fiction. And I've read probably 25 or 30 books about how to run a law office, how to manage people. I'm an avid reader. name particular books. None comes to mind at this point, but I really like history. I'm reading a book right now titled Presidents of War, and it's a historical book about all the presidents of the United States and what they went through in before they got into war and during war and after the war, and it goes into the politics of it, et cetera. And I find it exciting. I think we learn a lot from the past. As I'm reading this book right now, I'm reading about James Monroe and the War of 1812, and politics was just as vicious then as it is now. And so nothing's changed in the world from that standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's a book I'm reading at the very moment, and I'm really enjoying it.
So going back kind of to the main topic of divorce, if let's make it personal. If you had a grandchild who had gotten married and was really going through their first real test of their marriage and struggling, what advice would you give to someone who's going through struggles in their marriage?
To talk, to listen. If need be, get some counseling. Pray about it. And try to see what you can do to save your relationship. But if you think your relationship can't be saved, that you've reached that point that you've made a decision you need to get a divorce, or your spouse has made a decision that there's going to be a divorce, then you got to do some things in preparation for it, such as gathering documents, gathering information. It's amazing how many women I have interviewed going through a divorce, and they know absolutely nothing about their finances, about their assets, about their husbands. Some of them don't even know how much money their husband makes. That information generally is available at home. Gather that information and start preparing for what's coming. Looks like our sign's coming.
Our sign's coming down. This is the first episode, guys. So we've got growing pains here. All right. So when you're in the early stages of divorce, let's say you've just been served with divorce papers, what are some early steps? You haven't even talked to a lawyer yet. What are some early steps you can do to protect yourself?
First thing I'd say is behave yourself. Don't do stupid things. Get over the anger. I know it hurts, but so many people react in anger, and then they do stupid things, and then those stupid things come back to haunt them during the divorce case. I've seen people do crazy things.
All right, take that. Thank you.
Had a case where a woman sent her husband a video of the first bonfire of the season, and she was burning everything he owned in the backyard.
Oh, goodness.
Okay? Had another case where a husband got angry at his wife, and he opened all of her lingerie drawers and urinated on them. Stupid. Mm-hmm. Those things came back to haunt those people in divorce, especially when there's a custody battle going on. Don't do stupid things. Let's get through this and move on with your life. For women in particular, if there's violence, if there's a potential for violence, get yourself to where you're safe. Take whatever steps are necessary to be safe and to have your children be safe. For men, don't do anything that's going to be violent. Don't give the wife a reason to call the police or to go down and file a family violence petition. And I'm not trying to stereotype men and women. I know these roles get reversed as well. Okay? But typically when you've got violent situation, it's the man that is being violent toward the woman.
Well, and like you were saying earlier, as far as mentally, men and women are different, and I think hormones, men and women are different. I think testosterone has a big effect on men.
Absolutely. And when people are hurt and they lose their temper, they do things that they later regret. Avoid that. Avoid that. And then find a good lawyer. Listen to a good lawyer. Take their advice, take it to heart, let them help you get through this.
So once a divorce is filed, do, does a person being divorced, do they have to wait until the end of the divorce, or is there anything that we can do in the interim to help them before the divorce is finalized?
Oh, there's lots of things that can be done to help while the divorce is pending. If there's violence, then a family violence petition can be filed, and you can get immediate relief. If there's not violence, but there's a lot of fussing and arguing and that kind of thing, your attorney may advise you to move out of the house. Moving out of the house during or prior to a divorce does not necessarily mean you're giving up the house. It means you're taking steps to prevent further conflict. Courts understand that. An attorney can file for a temporary hearing in which you go in and present the basic facts to a judge, and they make determination as to what's to happen in regard to children, child custody, child support, alimony, property, all the issues of divorce on a temporary basis while the divorce is pending. Sometimes that's absolutely necessary because one spouse may have all control of all the assets, all the income, whereas another spouse is maybe the homemaker or the one that cares for the children. And so sometimes you have to have those temporary hearings in order to provide for the spouse that's not able to provide for themselves and or their children. So there's lots of things an attorney can do. And a lot of times, one attorney can simply talk to opposing counsel and work these things out. That's not uncommon. Everybody has to move on with life. Remember, in a divorce, once you get past the issues of custody, what you're really doing is you're dividing things that exist now and things that will exist in the future. You're simply trying to find a way where these two people that have been living together can continue to survive and live as comfortable as possible separately, and to provide for the needs of the children so that both parents have access to the children and the children's well-being is taken care of.
What sort of extreme situations, in your opinion, would warrant a parent not having access to the children?
Wow. In most cases, court's going to give both parents access to the children unless it is shown that that is not in the children's best interest. If one of the parents has a drug or an alcohol problem, safety of the children, of course, has to be considered. If one of the parents has an anger problem, the safety of the children has to be considered. If one of the parents does not have a proper place for the children to visit, a proper home, that has to be considered. If one of the parents has a criminal history, a history of doing things that place the children in environments that would be harmful, that has to be considered. A court's going to assume from the beginning that it is in the best interest of the children that they have contact and access with both parents. Mm-hmm. You have to show the court that that assumption is incorrect in order to end up with a result where one of the parents has either no contact with children or supervised visitation or limited visitation. Perhaps it's just daytime visitation with no overnights if they don't have a proper home where the children can sleep. Courts want to see that the children, when they're visiting with a non-custodial parent, have a bed to sleep in, not necessarily sleeping with the parent. Have a clean, safe environment. Are going to always be supervised. You know, a parent that has an unusual work schedule. Children sleep in the night and are up during the day. A parent that has to work at night and sleep during the day, that makes it difficult. You have to find ways to work around that.
How would you advise that parents talk to their kids when they're in a divorce? I mean, you say you've got an 8-year-old kid that's just curious and just asking all kinds of questions, and there's things going on. They see changes, and they want to know what's going on.
Talk to them honestly, but don't share your grievances against your spouse with the children. Let the children know that both parents love them and that they had nothing to do with the breaking up of the marriage, and that life will continue and they will be involved with both parents if that's the case. And usually it is. Listen to the children. Listen to their concerns. Address those concerns. If necessary, maybe get some counseling. Perhaps have your minister counsel them. A lot of churches have a youth minister who is trained to deal with these things. We're in a society now where 50 to 60% of the marriages today end in divorce. So your professionals, your ministers, your counselors, all these people have gotten training now.
Yeah, they got experience.
They have experience in dealing with it. Some of them, they have personal experience. Maybe even talk with the child's teachers. Let the child teacher know what's going on. You don't have to get into the nitty-gritty details, but just let them know that there's a divorce going on and the child may be dealing with some issues and emotional issues and need some support. Teachers are understanding and they're trained. And just watch for any signs that the child needs help and get them help.
So in talking about, the churches and their services and being able to help people, that makes me wonder, kind of, with your spiritual beliefs and your legal understanding, how do those come together? As far as how do you keep them separate if that's if that has to happen?
Wow. I am a Christian. But I'm also a strong believer that people do not have to live their lives in turmoil. Sometimes divorce is the only answer. You have two people that, for whatever reason, they just aren't going to get along, and that can be miserable. Different churches look at divorce in different ways. At one time, back in my parents' and grandparents' generation, divorce was a black mark. It was a no-no. I think society has woke up to the fact that that's not the way it should be looked at. People should not be looked down upon or frowned upon because they happen to get a bad situation where divorce became necessary. But I'm not going to sit here and preach the Bible about it. That's a minister's job. But I feel in my career I have helped a lot of people to improve their lives. And I've had people come to me 20, 25 years later and thank me for what we did for them and how it helped them and how it helped their children. Makes me feel real good. That's what this is about as an attorney. For me, is helping people. I think the Bible tells you that you should be trying to help people, help relieve people's pain and their anguish. And believe me, a bad marriage can be very painful with a lot of anguish, and it can be very hurtful for children.
So let's say, we've been to trial. We know what to expect at trial. But a lot of times people are in a divorce have never been to court before. So if you had somebody who was asking you for advice, they're about to go to court, they don't have a lawyer, and you're just going to give them some basic advice for their trial date, what advice would you give them?
Well, the first advice I would give them is get a lawyer. There have been so many times that people have come to me after getting a divorce and having represented themselves, and they're not happy with the outcome. And in most cases, there's not a lot you can do to change that outcome. It's a lot easier to get a favorable outcome from the beginning than it is later. Property division is not subject to modification. Child support, you have to show a change of circumstances since the divorce in order to modify child support. Those are not the standards from an initial decision. Alimony, you have to show that something has changed. You have to show, to change things, you have to show the court that either the court or you made an error as a matter of law.
Mm-hmm. Or something new came up.
Or something new and unexpected. So get a lawyer to begin with. But the good news is 90% of all divorce cases end up settling before ever going to court. Okay? That's what a good lawyer does. Our job is to find solutions for our clients. Find solutions that are fair and equitable based upon what the law allows. To negotiate on behalf of our clients. It's real hard as an individual representing yourself to put aside the emotional aspect and look at the realistic business aspects of it. Okay, what's fair and reasonable under the circumstances? Well, if you're emotional, that's maybe one answer. Well, he should have to pay me this because he did such and such. But if you put the emotion aside and you look at it, you say, well, we both worked for this asset. Perhaps one was working in one way and one was working in another. One was going to a job and one was being a homemaker. Okay? Everybody contributes to a marriage different. But if you both worked for an asset, then perhaps you're equally entitled to your share of that asset. Whereas emotionally, the answer in the client's mind is very different. That's why you need a good lawyer that knows what a court probably will do with the facts and the circumstances. You also need a good lawyer to investigate the facts. You got to know what the facts are, what the truth is. And you got to be able to present it to the court if it's going to trial, or to a mediator or opposing counsel if it's not going to trial, in a way that will result in the outcome that is fair for your client. Lawyers know how to do that. Lay people don't. I always hated it when a new client would walk in the door and she'd say, I brought two of my friends who have recently went through divorce. Can they sit in with us? Oh, my goodness. What a nightmare that is. Because they think that the results that their friends got is the results they should get. Well, every divorce case is different. Every one is unique. The facts, the circumstances are different. And so you got a potential client coming to see you, and they're listening to their friends who are telling them, oh, you should get this and you should get that. Their friends do not know what the spouse's viewpoint might be. Everyone tells a story that is biased in their favor.
Yeah, everyone's the hero of their own story.
Always. And there's 2 stories to every divorce case. And a good lawyer, he's going to find out what the other side's story is. He doesn't want to be surprised in court. And then he's going to balance that against what his client's telling him. And then he's going to try to say, well, where's the truth? Because that's what a judge is doing. A judge is listening to both sides and trying to decide where's the truth. So when you got someone that's listening to all their friends who've been through the same thing, you have to figure out a way to get them to stop listening to their friends because they're not going through the same thing. You have to find a way to get them to start listening to you as the attorney. And when you disagree with a client, you got to tell them so. You got to tell them not only that you disagree, but why. You've got to explain to them that you're there for them and that you're trying to guide them through this process and help them understand what's happening and why it's happening.
Well, I'm going to guide you back to the question, because the question was, if you're going to court, let's make the example that someone's going to court, they've already gotten 2 continuance trials tomorrow, they aren't going to go to court with an attorney. The one that comes to mind for me, for example, is bring all of your evidence to court. There's been many times that I've been cross-examining someone on the stand, and they'll be like, oh, well, I've got pictures at my house, or I've got statements somewhere, and they didn't bring it to court. So is there any other advice like that you would just give to a pro se person?
Yeah, bring your evidence, bring your witnesses, be prepared, and pray the other side doesn't have a good lawyer. I mean, there are rules of evidence.
There are.
And you have to follow those rules. Now, if both sides don't have a lawyer, the judge is going to give them both a lot of latitude.
Mm-hmm.
And he or she sometimes will ignore the rules of evidence just to get the matter heard. The judge is sorting it all out based on what they think and understand the facts to be and the law to be. And they just want to be heard. I find this far more often in rural counties than I do in the more urban counties.
Because even the evidence that you bring, you can't just walk up and hand it to the judge. There's certain procedural steps before you hand it to the judge.
And some judges will help, and some judges just will look at you and say, I'm not your lawyer. It's not my job to help you.
Mm-hmm.
But then other judges will, almost act like a lawyer for both sides.
Well,
I've seen it both
how do you
ways.
pick the right judge?
You don't pick the judge. Your judge is assigned by the clerk of the court. And then you might be assigned one judge, and when you show up for court, that judge is not on the bench, but a magistrate judge.
Oh, a substitute judge.
A substitute judge is sitting for them. That's why it's so important to know your judges. Lawyers should always be familiar with the judges in the circuit that they're practicing in. I don't take cases in counties where we don't know the judges.
Mm-hmm.
It's very important to understand each judge and their viewpoints. Maybe you have a judge that's been married their whole life to the same person, and they have one viewpoint. Then you have another judge that's been through a divorce or maybe been through a custody case or has stepchildren. They have a different perspective on life. You need to know these things about your judges and what they're open to. Maybe you have a judge that got appointed to the bench or elected. They didn't have a lot of domestic relations experience when they started. Then you have another judge that practiced family law. That's been through all the ups and downs of it, but their perspective is very different. Then you got another judge that has a undergraduate degree in psychology. Okay,
So it sounds like a pro se person, a person without an attorney, has a lot of catching up to do.
Yeah.
To be able to get up to speed
You're at a
to go
real
to trial.
real disadvantage. And it's, in my opinion, a major mistake to go to court without a lawyer. Even if it's been continued a couple times. If you hire a lawyer and he goes to your court and he says, Judge, I was just hired yesterday, I need a continuance, majority of the time the judge is going to grant that. Judges are looking to give people a fair chance to present their case. And that's their job.
All right. Well, let's talk after trial. So let's say you've got somebody like yourself who was married at 18, never lived on their own. Now they're getting divorced, got kids, and going out on their own, one income. What kind of budgeting advice would you give somebody who's going out on their own for the first time?
You got to sit down and actually make out a budget. Sit down and write it down. This is the amount of income I'm going to have coming in from all these sources. This is what it's going to take for me to live. How does that work? And if it doesn't work, you got to find solutions. Maybe you have to reach out to family. It's not uncommon for somebody to have to go back home to mom and dad and get some help when they go through a divorce. You got to meet the needs of the children. That's the financial aspect of it. Remember, everybody's lifestyle is going to change after a divorce. In most cases, it's going to change to the negative. There's just not going to be as much money. And as a lawyer, it's kind of your job to counsel your client about that, to go through a budget with them. That's why we do a financial affidavit. We look at the numbers and crunch those numbers and say, this is what it's going to take for you to live.
What is a financial affidavit?
A domestic relations financial affidavit is a document that has to be filed in every divorce case, which simply tells the court what the finances are of the parties, what the income is, what the assets are, what the expenses are, so that a judge can look at this document. Each side has presented one, and a judge takes that document, and it's probably the document that a judge looks at more than any other document. It's been filed before the case, and it's there right in front of the judge. It's in a form that the judge is familiar with, and the judge is looking at that document as that trial's going along, and he's saying, okay, they talked about a house. This is where they say the house is worth, et cetera, et cetera. So it's very important that that document be accurate and that it be done as soon as possible. But it's basically a budget. It's a budget of both parties. And then I like to see the client also prepare a similar document for what's going to happen after the divorce. Here's my budget. I'm going to have this. This is why I need this much child support. This is why I can't pay this much child support. They got to know what their finances are going to be like afterwards. And that's your goal in pursuing the divorce case, is to reach a point to where both parties can survive in a reasonable lifestyle and the children's needs can be met. That's a financial affidavit. So after the divorce, you got to have a budget. But you also have to have support from family and friends. Okay? That's where family can come in and be very helpful in helping you get your life started over again. Okay?
How many children do you have?
I have 5 children.
Grandchildren?
Oh, my goodness. I think about 16 grandchildren and about 7 great-grandchildren.
Oh, boy, you've been around
I
a
say
lot of
about
kids.
because I could lose count real easily. And then I have stepchildren and step-grandchildren. And which do you count? It becomes real hard.
So what are some of the most important things in helping a child develop under age 5?
Security. children want to feel safe. Children are very flexible. They can bounce back from things as long as they feel safe and loved. If you notice very young children, most of them are going to really have a close bond with one parent, usually the mother. As they develop in age, that bond with that one parent that they've has become the nucleus of their life, it will break away a little bit, and they'll start moving toward the other parent or sharing it. But children want to love both parents, but they need security. They just need to feel that everything's all right, and they're going to be safe, and they don't have to worry about things when they're very young. As they get older, they begin to look to their peers, to their friends.
What age does that transition start to happen?
Oh, wow. That starts about 10. About 10 years old.
So how do you parent a 10-year-old?
Listen to them, watch them, make sure they have the friends that you want them to have, keep them in the right environment. My advice to every parent is raise your children in the church, whatever your religion is, but raise your children in the church. Raise your children around people that are like-minded to you, that have the same values and principles as you do. Raise your children around other parents that if they see your children are not doing they should, they're going to share that information with you. It takes a community to raise a child. So you want to make sure your children are in a strong community.
Mm-hmm. And what kind of dating and relationship advice would you give a middle and high schooler?
Oh, my rule with my girls was you can't date till you're 15, and then it has to be a double date, and then you can't single date until you're 16. That would never fly today. Society has changed so much, I'm not sure it's for the best. My girls thought I was a mean, terrible ogre because I had those rules. And I even had a rule one time that you had to wear a skirt or a dress at least twice a week to school. Boy, that was a big mistake. They would take their clothes with them and change as they got on the bus. As I listen to my daughters now, who are grown and grandparents themselves, they have shared some of their thoughts on those things. And so times change, society changes. But you just want to teach your children to make good, sound decisions, to look at the aspects of the decisions they're making. I have a nephew that was contemplating quitting college in the last week or so. And I sat down with him and talked to him, and I says, what's going on? Well, I just don't know what I want to do. And I told him, well, you're making a decision now that's going to affect your life. But you know, it's not just going to affect your life. It's going to affect the life of whoever you end up marrying, and it's going to affect the life of your children and the lifestyle you can give them in the future, too. I said, so you need to think about this strongly.
Yeah, focusing on others gives you purpose.
Well, yeah. And lo and behold, after talking with me, the next day I got a phone call from him, and he's decided to go back to college. So I felt real good about that advice that I gave him. But he was struggling a little bit in school, and he wanted to just give up. And I think I made him understand that that's not the answer. That can't should not be in your vocabulary. It should be I can, and I'll find a way.
How can I?
And how can I do it? Mm-hmm. And that's what you want to do with your children. Do not try to be your children's best friend when they're teenagers. Okay? They don't need a friend. They need a parent. They have lots of friends. Be a parent. And being a parent's hard being a good parent is even harder. And being a good parent means that you have to sometimes make your children angry when you see them making mistakes and prevent those mistakes from happening.
So I'm going to give you a chance to give somebody some credit for helping you and developing you in your career. Who's a mentor or someone that comes to mind as, wow, I really appreciate this person in my professional development.
In my career?
Yeah, in your career.
Wow. Well, I'm not going to name one person, but I'm going to say the judges of Gwinnett County. When I first started out, the judge that swore me in, a Judge Huff, who's now long retired, he swore me in. He says, now, if you need anything, you just call me up. I'll be glad to help you. Well, like a week later, I got my first family violence case, and I was not certain of how to do it and what to do. And believe it or not, I actually called a judge and said, I've got this going on. What can you do to help me? And he actually walked me through the process and how things worked. And a judge doesn't have to do that, okay? I had another judge one time in the middle of a trial. I was very emotionally involved, which is a mistake for a lawyer to get emotionally involved. And I had the opposing party on the witness stand, and I was going at them hard and heavy. And the judge stopped me in the middle of the trial. He looked at me and he said, Mr. Taylor, why are you so angry? And it set reality to my head. And I asked the judge for just a moment. And he gave me a 5-minute recess, and I came back, and I apologized to the court and to the party on the stand. And I went on without the anger and subsequently won the case. But the judge saw that I needed that little guidance, and he gave it to me. I've had a number of judges that come to me and complimented me about the way we train the attorneys, the young attorneys at Daniels and Taylor, and thanked me for it and said, it's always refreshing to have the attorneys from your office come in because they're well prepared and you're doing an excellent job in training these young people. And it's really helpful in court. Made me feel very proud. Judge Warren Davis was always available for advice anytime I wanted to talk to him about any issue with the law, as long as it wasn't about a case that I had with him. Mm-hmm. He became a good friend over the years. So I'd say the judges in Gwinnett County, they're very good at maintaining decorum within the courtroom and helping young lawyers to get through the process and understand it. Law school teaches you the law. It really doesn't teach you how to practice law. Yeah, you do some moot court and you do some things in law school that you think you're practicing law, but until you actually get in a courtroom, until you actually have a client that's relying upon you, you don't really know what you're doing. So it's always been my theory that every young lawyer starting out should either work for another attorney who can mentor them or work with another attorney that's willing to mentor them so that they can get the benefit of experience to help them serve their clients and serve the justice system. Mm-hmm. Did I answer your question?
Yes, you did. Well, full disclosure to the viewers, Tony is my father, Tony Taylor. We work together at Daniels and Taylor PC. Could you tell a little bit about the firm?
Let's see. I've been practicing law about almost 37 years. I started out as a young attorney working just for myself, never worked for another lawyer. I met Jerry Daniels. We had both rented office space in the same building and right next to each other. And we began brainstorming our cases together and very quickly decided that we had a lot in common, even though we practiced totally different areas of law, but we had a lot of common, and we decided to form Daniels and Taylor. Daniels and Taylor, I think, has been around 34 years, something like that. Time keeps going on, and I lose count. We started out handling anything that came in the door. We were trying to make a living. But as time passed, family law came my way strongly, and the firm grew, and now we practice only family law. We have grown from the 2 lawyers with no paralegal to 2 lawyers with 1 paralegal to, I think we have 8 lawyers, and we're trying to hire another, and we have 2 more potentials, people that have finishing law school and waiting for them to pass the bar. So
shout out to Brock, who's helping us with the podcast.
yes. So I think we'll be up to 9 or 10 lawyers in a very short time. We built the firm around the principle of serving our clients first, working as a team. I think that our size of our firm is a real advantage. We actually sit down with the lawyers in our firm twice a month and discuss their cases with them. We brainstorm the cases together so that every client gets the benefit of the vast knowledge that's within this firm. And it's amazing how many new ideas, how many different ways of approaching a case come up in these discussions.
Yeah, with fresh eyes.
Fresh eyes.
Yeah.
Okay? Because it's very easy as a lawyer to get emotionally vested in your client's case. We all try not to do that, but we like our clients. We believe in our clients. We want to do the best we can for our clients. But if you get a fresh set of eyes that doesn't even know the client really, but is listening to the facts and the circumstances of the case and the law, applying the law, sometimes it gives you a whole new perspective of how to approach a case. Or maybe one lawyer's aware of some case law that might apply in the case that another lawyer isn't familiar with. The law has a vast amount of cases out there, and no lawyer can know it all. What we're trained to do in law school is to research and find those things. But experience implants them right up here. Mm-hmm. Or it might implant just a nugget up here that tells you there's something out there, go look for it.
Yeah. Because when something happens to you personally, it creates an emotional feeling that you don't get when you're reading it in a book. And that's what makes it stick in your brain. All right.
But I'm very proud of the firm we built and the high quality of the lawyers we have in this firm. Every single one of them is dedicated to providing the very best service they can to our clients.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for joining me today, Tony.
It's been a pleasure.
This has been your first episode of the Dealing with Divorce podcast. We'll see you next time. Bye.